My name is Danielle Atwood. I am 32 years old. Last Sunday, my mother-in-law slid a manila envelope across the dinner table, looked at my husband, and said, "I think you need to see this." Inside that envelope was a DNA test she had secretly done on our 3-year-old daughter. She thought the results would destroy my marriage. What she did not know was that the same results were about to destroy her own secrets instead. And there was something else nobody knew. Not my husband. Not his sister. Not even his father. I had already found out about the DNA test 2 weeks earlier. And those 2 weeks changed everything. Before I tell you what happened, make sure to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Now let me take you back 7 years. That was the day I first met Patricia Atwood. I was 25 years old. Mark and I had been dating for 4 months when he brought me to his parents' house for dinner. Patricia opened the front door like she was interviewing me for a job. She did not hug me. She shook my hand and studied my face. Dinner started normally enough. Pot roast. Small talk. Mark's father Warren told stories about fixing things around the house. Then Patricia slowly changed the conversation. "So Danielle," she said with a careful smile, "where did you grow up?" I told her about my small apartment in Bridgeport. I told her my mother was a pediatric nurse. "And your father?" I put my fork down. "He left when I was 6. Patricia nodded slowly and touched her pearl earring. That became her habit over the years. Every time she heard something she did not like, her fingers reached for that pearl earring. "That must have been difficult," she said. But she said it the way people say interesting when they are secretly judging you. Later that night, Mark smiled at me in the car. "She liked you." "Did she?" I asked. He laughed. "I did not." That night, I noticed something important about Patricia. She always wanted to know where things came from. Not just people. Everything. Where the wine was made. Who recommended the restaurant. Where furniture came from. She inspected labels before she trusted anything. She was a woman who tracked origins. At the time, I did not realize that one day she would turn that same obsession against my daughter. Mark and I got married the next summer. Small wedding. 40 guests. Beautiful outdoor venue near the Connecticut coast. My mother flew in from Arizona. Patricia wore cream instead of another color. My maid of honor whispered that it was probably a power move. I ignored it. I was marrying a good man. The first year of marriage was peaceful. We rented a small house in Milford, close enough to visit Mark's parents for holidays but far enough to have our own space. At least, that was the plan. Patricia did not believe in personal space. She used the emergency key we gave her whenever she wanted. Most Tuesdays she would walk in without warning and reorganize things. The spice rack. The coat closet. The towels. One time she rearranged my linen cabinet and left a note. Towels by color. Easier to find. I thanked her because I did not know what else to do. Mark always defended her. That's just how Mom is. His younger sister Courtney was even worse. Courtney still lived at home and followed Patricia everywhere. Every family dinner ended the same way. Courtney would leave. Then Patricia would call Mark later and criticize something about me. The food. The house. The way I organized things. I stayed quiet. I was still new to the family. Then Thanksgiving came. Patricia lifted her glass at dinner. "To Mark," she said. Everyone looked at him. Then Patricia looked at me for exactly 1 second. Mark could have had anyone. Everyone laughed. I smiled too. But something cold settled inside my chest. 2 years later, our daughter Lily was born. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. She came into the world screaming so loudly the nurse laughed. Patricia held her in the hospital room and smiled warmly. "She looks just like Mark did." For the first time, I thought maybe becoming a grandmother would soften her. For 6 months, it did. Then Lily's hair changed. At first it was dark brown. Then it slowly became lighter. By her first birthday, she had beautiful strawberry red curls. My mother had the same hair. So did my grandmother. The genetics made perfect sense to me. But Patricia did not see genetics. She saw danger. At Lily's first birthday party, Patricia held one of Lily's curls between her fingers. "Interesting," she said. Then she looked at Mark. "Where does the red hair come from?" I explained about the recessive gene in my family. Patricia smiled her pearl-earring smile. Interesting. Red hair does not run in the Atwood family." She said it casually. Like someone pointing at a crack in the wall. Not serious. Just something people should notice. That was the beginning. After that, the comments never stopped. "She's so unique looking. No one on our side has that coloring. Maybe there's Irish somewhere?" I started writing the comments down in a notebook beside my bed. 14 comments in 6 months. At work, I documented everything. I was an occupational therapist at a children's hospital. Documentation helped me understand patterns. And Patricia's behavior was becoming a pattern. Courtney helped spread it. One day she posted a photo of Lily online. Lily was standing in Patricia's garden wearing a green romper. Courtney's caption said, "She's so unique looking. Wonder where she gets it." I showed the post to Mark. He shrugged. "Courtney is just joking." But people in the family started acting differently. Aunt Margot watched me carefully. Dennis barely looked at me during family barbecues. Nobody said anything directly. That was Patricia's style. She planted doubt quietly. Like smoke filling a room before anyone notices the fire. Then came the sippy cup incident. One Tuesday I had to stay late at the hospital. A young patient needed extra therapy time. Patricia offered to watch Lily. I dropped Lily off with snacks, diapers, her stuffed elephant, and her green sippy cup. When I picked Lily up that evening, the cup was gone. "Oh, I threw it away," Patricia said casually. It looked old. It was not old. I had bought it 3 weeks earlier. As I walked through Patricia's kitchen, I noticed a small plastic bag on the table. The kind people use to store evidence. Patricia quickly grabbed it and shoved it into a drawer. "Just organizing," she said. Then I noticed a thick manila envelope sitting on a nearby desk. At the time, none of it made sense. But part of my brain was already putting pieces together. At work, I was different. Not quieter. Not careful. Strong. One of my patients was a little boy named Aiden who had cerebral palsy. For months I worked with him to help him hold a crayon properly. One Thursday he finally drew a shaky circle. His mother cried. Later, I cried too in the supply closet. My supervisor once told me, "Danielle, you are the calmest person in a crisis I've ever met." That mattered later. Because Patricia eventually tried to paint me as a woman who married Mark for money. But I had already built my own life. I paid for grad school myself. I earned my license myself. I worked hard for everything I had. Patricia never asked about my job. Not once in 7 years. Easter dinner was the first time she openly said it in front of the whole family. Lily ran into the dining room wearing a yellow dress. Her red curls bounced as she laughed. "She's adorable," Ellie said. Patricia set down her wine glass. "She really doesn't look like any Atwood I've ever seen." Silence filled the table. Then Courtney added, "Mom's right." I looked through old family photos. No redheads. The air changed. Nobody argued. Nobody defended me. I looked at Mark. He stared at his plate. That hurt more than Patricia's words. In the car afterward, I finally snapped. If your mother says something like that again in front of your family, I will respond. Mark tightened his hands around the steering wheel. I'll talk to her. When? Soon. That's what you said after Thanksgiving. He stayed silent. And deep down, I knew he would never confront her. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at work. The number was local. Mrs. Atwood? This is Kelly from Geneva Labs. My stomach tightened immediately. We received a DNA sample under your daughter Lily Atwood's name. We are calling to verify parental consent. I froze. I didn't submit a sample. The sample was submitted by Patricia Atwood, who identified herself as the child's grandmother. My hand started shaking. Would you like to approve the test or cancel it? Cancel it, I said immediately. After the call ended, I sat alone in the therapy room staring at the wall. Then I called a family lawyer. Her name was Rachel. I told her everything. The comments. The suspicions. The sippy cup. The phone call. When I finished, Rachel leaned back in her chair. Danielle, what Patricia did is illegal. I stared at her. A grandparent cannot authorize DNA testing on a child without parental permission. Rachel paused. Did she fake your signature? I don't know. We'll find out. Then Rachel told me something important. Do not confront her yet. Why not? Because if you tell Mark now, he'll call his mother. She'll cry, apologize, and ask him to keep it quiet. Nothing will change. If you want this behavior to stop forever, let her expose herself. So I waited. That was the hardest part. 4 days I acted normal. I went to work. I cooked dinner. I gave Lily baths. I read her favorite Caterpillar book every night. Mark noticed nothing. One night Lily climbed into bed between us. I watched her sleep beside Mark. His jaw. Her curls. His steady breathing. Her tiny hand holding his shirt. I thought about my mother. She raised 3 kids alone after my father left. She taught me something important. Information alone is not power. Knowing when to use it is. 5 days after the phone call, I drove to Patricia's house to pick up Lily's shoes. Patricia was out. Courtney answered the door. As I walked toward the mudroom, I heard Courtney talking on FaceTime. Mom has the results, she whispered excitedly. She's doing it at Sunday dinner in front of everyone. I stopped moving. She says once Mark sees the proof, he won't be able to ignore it. I quietly grabbed Lily's shoes and walked back. Courtney quickly ended the call. Just talking to a friend, she said nervously. No problem, I said calmly. But inside, everything became clear. Patricia was planning a public humiliation. And she believed she was going to win. I decided not to stop her. I was going to let her light the match herself. A few days later, I discovered something shocking. I created an account on the same DNA website Patricia used. I wanted to understand how the system worked. That's when I learned something important. DNA websites don't only show parents and children. They also search for cousins, siblings, uncles, and other relatives. I managed to access the account Patricia had made. The password was Lily's birthday. Of course it was. Under potential relatives, I found a name. James M. Age 36. Portland, Oregon. Relationship estimate, half-uncle. I stared at the screen. That meant James shared a parent with either Mark or me. But since only Lily's DNA was submitted, the match had to come from Mark's side. I took screenshots and sent them to Rachel. The next evening, Rachel called. If this is accurate, someone in Mark's family has a secret child. I spent 2 nights searching online. Finally I found him. James Michael Callahan. Born in 1990. Adopted at birth in Hartford, Connecticut. Patricia was 25 in 1990. She married Warren 2 years later. The math hit me all at once. Patricia had a child before she married Warren. She gave him up for adoption. And she never told anyone. Not even her husband. Only one person seemed to know. Aunt Margot. I realized this because another DNA match listed on the site was Margaret R. Margot's middle name was Ruth. Margot had known the secret for decades. I sat at my kitchen table and tried to understand Patricia. For one moment, I imagined a scared young woman giving up her baby. I truly felt sorry for her. But then I remembered what she was doing to my daughter. Her fear had turned into cruelty. And now she was ready to destroy my family to protect her own lie. Thursday night, Patricia called. "Big family dinner Sunday," she said cheerfully. "Everyone will be there." I knew exactly what she was planning. Friday, I printed every screenshot. Every message. Every note. Every piece of evidence. Rachel prepared legal documents just in case. Saturday night, I gave Lily a bath. She splashed water everywhere while I washed her red curls. Then she looked up at me. "Mommy, why does Grandma Pat always touch my hair?" My heart broke. "Because your hair is beautiful," I whispered. "Is it magic hair?" "The most magic." Later that night, Mark climbed into bed beside me. "Mom seems really excited about tomorrow," he said. I looked at him carefully. He had no idea his entire world was about to change. "I guess we'll find out why," I said. Sunday morning, I dressed simply. Ivory sweater. Dark jeans. Gold necklace. No armor. Just me. Lily wore a blue dress with little white flowers. She spun in circles in front of the mirror before we left. During the drive, she fell asleep in the back seat. I watched Mark's hands on the steering wheel. Strong hands. Builder's hands. And I wondered whether those hands would still hold mine by the end of the night. We arrived at Patricia's house at 4:15. Everyone was already there. Warren. Courtney. Dennis. Ellie. Margot. And sitting on the hallway table was the manila envelope. Waiting. Patricia noticed me looking at it. She smiled. "Dinner first," she said. The meal was strangely normal. Warren told stories. Dennis laughed. Courtney kept checking her phone. Margot barely touched her food. Patricia acted calm. Too calm. 20 minutes later, she stood up. The room immediately went quiet. "Before dessert," she said, "there's something I want to share with the family." She walked into the hallway, picked up the envelope, and returned to the table. Then she slid it toward Mark. "Open it." Mark frowned. "What is this?" Patricia folded her hands carefully. "This is a DNA test for Lily." Warren stared at her. "Patricia, what the hell did you do?" But Patricia ignored him. She looked straight at me. "No offense, dear, but this family deserves the truth." Mark's voice became dangerously quiet. "What truth?" Patricia lifted her chin. "I had Lily tested because I love this family. Because that child does not look like an Atwood." The room froze. "I think Mark deserves to know if Lily is really his daughter." The sentence crashed into the room. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Patricia smiled. She truly believed she had won. "Open it," she said again. Mark slowly opened the envelope. He pulled out the papers and began reading. 15 long seconds passed. Patricia shifted nervously. Courtney leaned forward. Finally Mark looked up. "She's mine." Patricia blinked. "What?" "Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. He held up the page. "Lily is my daughter." Patricia's smile cracked. "That can't be right." She reached for the papers. Mark pulled them away. "No. You've done enough." Courtney spoke quickly. "Maybe the lab made a mistake." Mark turned sharply. "Shut up, Court." Courtney looked shocked. Mark had never spoken to her that way before. Patricia's hand flew to her pearl earring. "There has to be an error," she whispered. "The hair, the coloring." That was when I finally spoke. "The results are correct, Patricia." Everyone looked at me. "I know because the lab called me 2 weeks ago to verify parental consent." "Consent you never had." Silence hit the room again. Warren leaned forward. "You tested our granddaughter without permission?" "I was protecting this family." Patricia snapped. I kept my voice calm. "Under Connecticut law, what you did was illegal." My attorney already explained everything. Patricia's face turned pale. "But the lab." "The lab followed the law," I interrupted. "You didn't." Nobody defended her. Then I looked at Mark. "But that isn't the most interesting thing in those results." The room became still. "What do you mean?" Mark asked. "Turn to page 4. He flipped through the papers. Then he frowned. "Potential familial match. James M., relationship estimate, half-uncle." He looked up slowly. "That means James is either my half-brother or yours." "He's not mine," I said quietly. Mark turned toward Patricia. "Mom, who is James?" Patricia opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then Aunt Margot suddenly stood up. "Trish, don't." Every person at the table understood immediately. Warren rose slowly from his chair. "Answer him." Patricia looked at Margot with terrified eyes. Finally her voice cracked. "It was before your father," she whispered. Mark stared at her. "You had another child?" Tears filled Patricia's eyes. "I was young. I was scared." "You had a son and never told us?" Warren's face looked empty. 36 years, he whispered. Patricia reached toward him. "Warren, please." "You told Margot," he said softly. "But not me." Margot tried to speak. "She was afraid." "Was she afraid for 36 years? Warren asked. Nobody answered. For a brief moment, I truly pitied Patricia. I imagined that frightened 25-year-old girl giving up her baby. I imagined carrying that guilt for decades. Then Patricia wiped her tears and pointed at me. "This is Danielle's fault. She exposed me on purpose." Any sympathy I had disappeared instantly. Mark stood. "No, Mom. Danielle didn't do this." "You did." He held up the papers. "You planned this dinner. You wanted to humiliate my wife." Then he repeated her own words back to her. "I think you need to see this." Patricia sat down heavily. Courtney started crying. "Mom told me Lily wasn't Mark's," she whispered. I believed her. Then Mark suddenly pulled out his phone. "I found something last year in the attic." He opened an old photo. A young woman stood in a garden. She had bright red hair. Dennis leaned closer. "Patricia, is that you?" Patricia slowly removed her pearl earring and placed it on the table. The tiny click sounded incredibly loud. "I started dyeing my hair when I was 19, she whispered. "I hated the red." The room went silent again. The red hair Patricia spent years attacking in Lily had actually come from Patricia herself. Not from me. Not from some mystery man. From her. Courtney looked at me with tears running down her face. "I'm sorry, Danielle." "I know," I said quietly. The dinner was over. Warren grabbed his jacket. "I'm going for a drive." He never looked at Patricia. Mark turned toward me. "Get Lily." I went upstairs. Lily was still asleep. Her red curls spread across the pillow like tiny rivers of copper. I picked her up carefully. She pressed her face into my shoulder and stayed asleep. When I carried her downstairs, everyone was leaving. At the front door, Patricia stepped in front of Mark. "Please don't leave like this," she begged. Mark stared at her. You didn't want a conversation, Mom. You wanted a performance. Outside, Warren called back from the driveway. If anyone says another word tonight, I'm calling my lawyer tomorrow. Nobody spoke again. We drove home in silence. Streetlights flashed across the dashboard. Lily slept in the back seat holding her stuffed elephant. Finally Mark spoke. How long did you know? About the test? 2 weeks. About James? 8 days. Why didn't you tell me? I took a slow breath. Because you needed to see it yourself. If I warned you, your mother would have apologized and everything would have gone back to normal. He stayed quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, I have a brother. I reached for his hand. He held mine tightly all the way home. The next morning, Mark called Patricia. I need space, he told her. Don't contact Danielle or Lily. Tuesday, Warren called. He had moved into Dennis's house temporarily. 34 years of marriage is a lot to rethink, he said quietly. Wednesday, Courtney texted me. I'm sorry. I should have questioned Mom instead of believing her. I thanked her. Thursday, Rachel officially sent Patricia a legal warning about the illegal DNA test. Friday evening, Mark found James online. James was a high school history teacher in Portland. He coached junior varsity basketball. He had a little daughter named Sophie. Mark stared at his photo for a long time. They had the same jaw. The same nose. The same eyes. Saturday morning, Mark finally emailed him. My name is Mark Atwood. I believe I'm your half-brother. James replied 2 hours later. I've been searching for my biological family for 7 years. That night they video called. I stayed in the living room with Lily while they talked in the kitchen. Then suddenly I heard Mark crying. Real crying. Deep crying. I quietly stepped into the doorway. James was crying too. 2 strangers who looked exactly alike. Separated for 36 years. Does she know about me? James asked softly. She knows, Mark answered. I never wanted to hurt anyone, James whispered. You didn't, Mark said. You aren't the one who lied. Lily tugged my sleeve. Why is Daddy sad? I kissed the top of her head. He's meeting family. 2 weeks later, Patricia showed up at our house. She tried using the side door first. But I had already changed the lock code. She knocked on the front door instead. When I opened it, she looked older. Smaller somehow. I need to explain, she said. I was young. My parents forced me to give him up. Mark appeared behind me. Then you should have told the truth years ago, he said. I was trying to protect the family, she whispered. No, Mark replied. You were protecting your secret. Patricia looked at me desperately. Danielle, please. I studied her for a long moment. This woman had spent 7 years questioning my daughter. She had stolen Lily's DNA. She had planned to destroy me publicly. But Lily still loved her grandmother. And I would not punish my daughter for Patricia's mistakes. You can still see Lily, I said finally. Hope flashed across Patricia's face. But only on our terms. And you will never be alone with her again. The hope dimmed. Still, she nodded. For the first time in 7 years, Patricia did not argue. She simply turned around and walked away. 3 weeks later, Warren visited our house. He brought Lily a wooden toy truck he built himself. When Lily saw him, she ran into his arms. Papa Warren. He held her tightly. Then he looked at Mark. She looks exactly like your mother did at that age, he said softly. Before she started dyeing her hair. Mark nodded. I know. 6 months later, Mark flew to Portland and met James in person. They sat in a diner for 4 hours talking. Later, James and his family visited us in Connecticut. Sophie and Lily ran through our backyard sprinkler together while Mark and James watched from the porch. Two brothers finding each other in the middle of their lives. Patricia and Warren started counseling. Warren eventually moved back home, but only after setting clear rules. No more secrets. No more lies. No more hidden histories. Patricia stopped dyeing her hair. Silver gray slowly replaced the brown color. But near her temples, faint traces of red still appeared. The truth always finds a way back. Courtney wrote both me and Mark long apology letters. For once in her life, she sounded honest. Aunt Margot was not invited to Thanksgiving that year. Nobody discussed it. The silence said enough. At work one afternoon, I helped a little girl stand in her new leg braces for 3 seconds. Her mother burst into tears. Later I wrote in my notes. Patient stood unsupported for 3 seconds. Progress within expected range. Some things take time. But healing still comes. The manila envelope still sits in my desk drawer. I never threw it away. Not because I need it. But because it reminds me of something important. Sometimes the weapon someone builds to destroy you becomes the very thing that finally sets you free. And I learned something else too. The people who work hardest to expose everyone else's secrets are usually hiding the biggest secrets of all. The truth does not need a performance. It does not need a stage. And it does not need a dramatic envelope sliding across a dinner table. The truth only needs time. That was my story. A DNA test. A family dinner. And a secret hidden for 36 years. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you in the next story.